Hello and welcome to another Pocket Talk. This is Chris the Pocket Master and I'm here to talk about the GPD Win 1. I'm going to review everything that I have done with the device and my experiences overall. So let's get started. What the heck is this thing? I want it! Those were the words that came out of my mouth when I first laid eyes on the GPD. I didn't care if it had hardware issues or anything. I had to get it. I have had the GPD Win 1 for a few months now, and I could honestly say that it is a device that is really cool. It is basically a computer in the palm of your hands, with a beautiful 5.5-inch touchscreen. There is a built-in joypad to use for gaming, and a full functioning keyboard that is similar to old BlackBerry phones. There are 3 different modes you can switch in between within the controller. You could toggle on the mouse mode, joystick, and direct interface mode. In mouse mode, you could use the right joystick as a mouse, and the left and right shoulder buttons for left and right click. It also has a fan setting that you have to manually set from high to medium and to low. On joystick mode, you can fully use the 2 joysticks, all of the buttons on the controller, the shoulder buttons, and the keyboard's buttons within any game. In direct interface mode, it allows you to use a controller you input into the computer via USB. The GPD runs Windows 10 and it has the power of an Intel Atom X7 Z8 700 64-bit quad core. And it has gigahertz up to 2.4 CPU. I don't know, I'm not really a computer tech guy or anything like that, but I just know that it's powerful. It has 4 gigs of RAM and it supports micro SD cards up to 250, I think. Speaking of all that, not only can you play some awesome games from Steam and emulators on the GPD, but you can run applications that you would normally run on a Windows computer like Photoshop, video editing software, and Microsoft Office. The Steam games I have installed on this device are Sleeping Dogs, Pocket Rumble, and Final Fantasy X and 10-2. I also have a bunch of emulators that support SNES, Sega Genesis, Neo Geo Pocket, Arcade, PSP, and many more. I have installed applications such as Photoshop CS2, Macromedia Flash, RPG Maker Ace, Guitar Pro, Vegas Pro 15, and OBS Studio. The most important thing to note about this system is the heat. There is a fan to cool things down, but to me the fan seems like it can't cool down the system well enough to run powerful games for a very long time. So with that in mind, let's talk about the games and how they run. Also, I'm using the GPD with the settings that it came with right out of the box. I didn't tweak anything within the BIOS or use any throttle stop program. I have used throttle stop, but we'll get into that later. When I installed Sleeping Dogs on this device, it ran flawlessly, on low settings of course. When I played the game for about 45 minutes, the system became very hot, even when I turned the fan settings to high. However, it was nice to play Sleeping Dogs on the go. Oh, and speaking of temperature, it is a good idea to download an app that can measure your GPD's temperature. I use Core Temp, or Throttle Stop. I'm sure there are other programs out there, but those are the ones I prefer. You always want to know how hot it is when you're playing powerful games, so you don't overheat your system. I think the maximum temperature the GPD could go is 90 degrees. I went up to temperatures in the 80s when playing Sleeping Dogs. That is dangerously hot. When I run Final Fantasy X and 10-2, my GPD didn't get hot until an hour of gameplay. The keyboard gets a little warm, but overall I'm having a good experience with the game on the GPD so far. The highest temperature I got while playing the game for 2 hours straight was 73 degrees Celsius, with the fan setting set to normal speed. Just take a look at the gameplay here, it's very nice. I think the frame rate here is either 25 or 28 frames per second or 30 frames per second. You'll have a nice experience playing this game, and if you want to download games like Final Fantasy or Sleeping Dogs, I suggest you buy an SD card that has a file system of NTFS, because most Steam games will not run on ANEXFAT SD cards or any cards that have a file system name of FAT, I guess.
And download Throttle Stop for your GPD so you can configure your GPD settings, such as turning off that darn turbo boost that heats up your device. If you do that, then temperatures on your GPD will not exceed 68 degrees Celsius while playing games like Final Fantasy X.
Emulators run amazing on this thing. I could play MAME, SNES, Genesis, or Neo Geo emulators with ease. The system never really gets hot when it is running these applications. The highest temperature I got when running emulators was 65 degrees Celsius. To be honest, I am an old school gamer. I enjoy playing Sega Genesis, SNES, Game Gear, N64, Neo Geo Pocket, or any other system from the 90s. I use RetroArch for pretty much everything I play. It was kind of confusing to set the controls the way I want them to within the emulator, but with a little trial and error, I figured it out. What I've learned is that some emulators, specifically the older ones, have trouble reading the joystick option within the GPD. I always make it a habit to be in joystick mode before I load a gaming software, so the joystick can be read. If the joystick cannot be read at all, then the mouse mode has the joypad manually set to WASD, and the X, Y, and A and B buttons set to the arrow commands on the keyboard. So you could set some of your controls like that, but you don't want to do that. You want to use the joystick. So you have to switch to controller mode as soon as you launch the application, otherwise it won't read the controller at all. You won't have this issue with most Steam games. You could always toggle between mouse and controller mode within Final Fantasy X HD. But with Sleeping Dogs, you have to switch to controller mode as soon as you launch the program. Dreamcast games seem to work well, however, it does reach temperatures up to 75 degrees Celsius after an hour and 30 minutes. But after that time, the GPD's battery will be drained. Yes, the battery on the GPD is not great, especially if you're playing games that require high processing power.
But again, if you download Throttle Stop and turn off Turbo Boost, your machine's battery will last much longer, and the temperatures will not go beyond 68 degrees Celsius while playing Dreamcast games. I cannot stress enough that you need Throttle Stop to run games like Final Fantasy X or Dreamcast games, because if you do not get that and adjust your system, then your system will heat up.
This device is all fun and games, but I have installed computer applications on this thing. Photoshop runs really good on here. There is more than enough RAM and a lot of room for scratch data to have fun with Photoshop. You could even hook up a Wacom tablet and draw on the little screen. Or, you know what? There's an HDMI input for the GPD, so you could hook it up to a big screen and draw on there. It looks pretty nice on any TV. I find myself hooking this thing up a lot when I draw. Macromedia Flash runs pretty smooth as well. I could draw my cartoons on the go or play fun Flash games the way I have always wanted to play them. The Flash games I have run great. I no longer need to think about how to run Flash games on my phone anymore. I could just play them with ease on my GPD. I also reprogrammed a little space shooter game to work on here. Since the joypad is mapped to WASD and the X, Y, A, and B buttons are mapped to the page command arrows, I made the joypad move my character, since it's mapped to WASD, and the down arrow, since it's mapped to A, shoot the bullets. Now the space shooter is fun for me to play on the actual joypad and a button, so awesome. Let me talk about video editing on this microcomputer. Unfortunately, I cannot install Power Director onto this thing because the resolution of the GPD is too small. However, I have had success installing Sony Vegas Pro 15 on here and it works really good. I could do video editing on the go and it is very smooth. It runs better on the GPD than it does my main computer, which I thought was decently powered, but my main computer is only good for rendering now. Speaking of rendering, if you want to render videos using the GPD, it will get very hot. I do not recommend rendering on the GPD. Use an actual computer for that kind of stuff. This thing can read audio recording interfaces because it has a USB. I'm actually testing it out right now by recording this Pocket Top. So if you really wanted to, you could record music with the GPD. I have a Behringer 4-input Euphoria UMC 404 HD audio interface, and the GPD One can read it, no problem. There aren't any major heat issues when running software like Cubase, Audacity, Reaper, or any audio mixing and mastering software that I've tried. I haven't streamed Xbox One, PS4, or my Nintendo Switch on this thing yet, but I do not really care to do all that stuff. I know you can do it. Other YouTubers have showed that already, so I'm just gonna choose to not do that. I have streamed Mario 64 using OBS Studio on my personal YouTube channel, and wow. Yeah, at first it was a little jittery, but the gameplay was pretty smooth while streaming. However, the system reached temperatures as great as 75 degrees Celsius. Yeah, that's pretty hot. The footage I have captured for this video was purely off my GPD. So if y'all ever decide to capture videos on this thing, turn your fan settings to high or else you'll be entering dangerous temperatures within 20 minutes. Overall, the GPD Win 1 is an awesome system. If you use it properly, it can be the portable system of your dreams. If you always wanted to play games that will push the limits, I think your system will not last long. However, if you play games that do not stress the system out, then your system will be fine. I know there are various techniques that people use to cool down the system, but I don't want to modify my GPD.
The only thing I will use to help with the heat is throttle stop. So if you have a GPD, download it now.
I am more than happy with what the system offers. It's basically a decently powered computer in my pocket. Like I said before, it's stronger than the computer I primarily use. It handles everything just as good or better than I expected. However, I would do some research before buying it though to determine if this is what you really want. It won't play the most powerful games, so if you want to play the new Resident Evil or Dead or Alive or Street Fighter 5 or 6, what Street Fighter are we on? I don't know. But it won't play those games. If you want to play AAA games, just buy a real gaming computer because this thing won't handle it. I would recommend the GPD Win 1 to anybody that loves portable game systems, computer software on the go, or just traditional web browsing. This little computer basically destroys all of the handheld consoles I own, besides the Nintendo Switch, if you even want to call that thing portable. I'm still trying out new things with this device, so if I don't go over something that y'all are wondering about, just let me know in the comments below.
Since this video is a little old, I'm going to give a quick update because things have happened with my device. After almost 4 years of owning the GPD Win 1, I can honestly say that it was a very interesting device for its time. My GPD is to the point where the battery dies within 2 hours or less after a full charge. That is because I have pushed this device to run all sorts of things that it really wasn't meant to run. I also left it charging multiple times after use. And for that, my battery has almost swelled up to the point where I can't even turn it on anymore. It is very important that you monitor these devices when you are charging them. I recommend setting a timer for an hour or two so you can remind yourself to unplug it. Overall, the GPD Win 1 is an interesting device. It is the very first of its kind and I am happy to have one. I do have to make a battery replacement and I am planning to install a cooler of some kind in the future, but that doesn't void the fact that it is still worth getting. If I had taken better care of it by realizing its limitations and monitoring its charging sessions, it would still be in good condition. Well guys, that's all I have to say for this update.
So thanks for watching. I will see you later. Goodbye. I love you.